Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Alison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide.
Welcome back, preschool peeps.
Hi, peeps.
Did the word money in the title draw you in? Sometimes the word money just draws me in. I don't know. I'm sometimes
Makes me
interested.
want to sing that money song.
Yeah. And
the money. Yeah.
And you may be wondering, having looked at the title and heard Allison's little ditty, are we talking about the lack of funding in early education for professionals, or are we talking about how to teach children the value of money? And it is the latter. We are talking today about how to teach the children the value of money, because our ideas about money and about spending or not spending and what is important and the value of it start in early childhood and follow us through adulthood. And and Allison and I were talking before we started recording. She read an article that talked about how all of us can basically as adults be divided into two categories. Was that it? Was it
true? Actually, one of our preschool, two categories. One of our preschool peeps actually wrote us and sent us this article. So thank you. And it's basically saying that you're in one of two categories. You're either a spendthrift or you're a tightwad. And this way of thinking is developed as early as age 5, so which got me thinking of that's really early, because I never thought people would even be developed into one of those things until much older, much older, when you're maybe teenage years, and money becomes more of a thing. But the article said no, that adults are in those two categories too, and that it's as early as kindergarten age, which I thought was really, really young.
I seriously think I'm both, though. I go through periods of time where I'm not willing to spend money, and I'm just putting it away. And then I'll suddenly have this. I realize I'm spending. I go in and out. I don't think you're necessarily one or the other. I think you can go in and out. But I do have an appreciation for the value of money. And I know I do because of some of the things that I will do with my money and won't do with my money. So that teaches me that I understand the value of it and how hard I have to work for it and all of that. And I think that working for it is something that begins in early childhood. And maybe that's what starts to shape what they're going to think by the time they're 5. Young children benefit from having responsibilities. It's good for them to have responsibilities. Now, they need to be age and developmentally appropriate. Yeah. I'm not saying, have your 3-year-old mopping the whole house. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, I'm saying they need little responsibilities that match their abilities at that age. What you have to think to yourself, what potentially can this child do that won't take a long period of time because they have a short attention span, and this is not something we're going to battle over at all. Yeah. So in classrooms, you'll see responsibilities. You'll see things like the child who turns the lights off when we leave the room, the child who holds the flag, the child who is the line leader, the child who is the caboose, the child
the one who feeds the fish, if you have
feeds the fish, right, or helps us feed the fish, helps us feed the fish, the child who waters the plants. The child who I used to have an inspector. When I ran out of classroom responsibilities, I named children inspectors. So there was a child who was the block area inspector to make sure everything had been put back correctly. And somebody else was the art area inspector.
I used to have a librarian. And
there you go.
This is the person who would make sure all the books are put back properly so that they don't get broken. Because, sometimes they just throw it on the shelf. Because sometimes you do run out of jobs because, if you got 15 children, that's a lot of jobs. Right. So but I do feel that teaches them a good work ethic, I think, too, that. Yes. We're all part of this classroom family, and we all have a responsibility to take care of it and each other, and and I think that makes them grow up to be I do have a responsibility to my family or my workplace or my, whatever it might be. And then it's like a contributing member of society, that we all work together to make the community.
Yeah, but in our classrooms, we tend to not have a system with those responsibilities where they earn something.
Yes, that's true.
The value of money is you've earned it. It can get you things. And at home, if you have your children have responsibilities at home, well, then you can give them little bits of money and teach them about saving up these little bits of money so that they can get something they want. You can teach them that. I remember the first time one of my children, based on what he earned from doing things here, the first time that we were able to go to like the dollar store and he bought something with his own money, it was like a big, huge day in his life. He was so excited. And it was because it was his money. It wasn't my money.
Yeah.
So at home, I think it's easier to do something like that. In our early childhood program, and you should, by the way, they should have responsibilities and they should earn, and they should be able to get something with what they earn. It doesn't even necessarily have to be money. They can earn tickets. You can make little tickets for things like you get so many tickets and we will do something fun together that the child likes, or you get so many tickets and you'll get to do something you don't ordinarily get to do. So it doesn't, if you're thinking, oh, I don't have that kind of money to give to children, it's okay. It doesn't have to be money. Yeah. So, but what they learn then, even if it's some sort of ticket or something like that, and then they put them together to get something bigger, is they learn when I have a responsibility, I earn something. And when I earn enough of it, I may be able to get things that I want or need.
Yes.
In early childhood programs, it's more difficult to do that, I think, just because of the sheer number of children and the record keeping and all that. But there are things that you can do to still teach the children about the value of money. And I'm going to give you one example, and then Allison is going to give you one example that she's experienced. I work with a program where the early childhood program included kindergarten. That was the last grade or age, kindergarten. And the kindergartners were learning about shopping and stores and money. The class asked for donations of things from the family, from businesses nearby, from the larger community. And they set up a store, and it was so cute. Like they put the things out on shelves with signs as if you were going into a store that would tell you this is this department, this is that department. They did the literacy activity of making signs for the different areas of this shop they set up. And they let the families know the kindergartners are running a store from this day to this day. Your children will have the ability to purchase many different kinds of things, including small toys, canned goods. They had I'm telling you, they had all different sorts of things, like small toys, canned goods. I forget what else, but they had it was like a variety, what you would think of as a general store, I think. And then they brought the classes. They told the families, if you are able to send the most expensive thing, and they were so inexpensive. The most expensive thing is this amount of money if you're able to send. And if you're not, don't worry, we will cover your children. They made sure every child had the opportunity to buy something. And they brought the classes in, and the children who were the kindergartners were like helping them, like they were salespeople in the store. And then they had the cashier, and they had to figure out with the kindergartners and with the teachers, do I have enough money to buy this? I have to tell you, it was so cute. Like I was watching some of the children leave the store holding like, I don't know, a can of string beans. That was their big purchase, but they were so excited about it.
Proud.
They were so excited to have this can of string beans that they bought with their own money. It was so cute.
Oh, it's so funny.
I remember saying to one of the children, do you eat string beans? And they were like, no, but I bought these string beans. It was adorable. So you can figure out, it was really funny. You can figure out how something like that might work. There were a lot of moving parts. There were getting the items for the stores that the children actually could purchase and take home. There was the ensuring that everyone is covered. Like we're not going to have anybody who can't buy things. And I think that was in part handled because the things that they had were donated by local businesses and families and all that. So it's not like they spent money on the stuff. And, but my understanding of what they did was the teachers or the school had money, and I think they labeled somehow on the money whose money it originally was. And so when they brought it into the store,
yeah,
the kindergarten teacher gave people back
it came back
their money. Yeah.
Well, that's yeah.
But the
Yeah.
children, you know, they didn't know. They did that outside the sight of the children.
No.
So
Yeah.
the children thought,
Yeah.
you know, but it was, you have to think about the moving parts. But I thought it was a great lesson, not only for the kindergartners, but for all of the classes who had to go in and figure out what is the value of the money I have here and what will it buy me.
Yeah.
And they did have them in, my understanding is in the classes where they were coming in with money, they did have to earn it somehow. The classes did something, I forget if it was all together or individual, but they did have to earn like what they were gonna be. It was a whole, it took months to plan. It was a complex thing, but it was so worth it in the end.
Yeah.
So worth it. And what did you experience, Alison?
All right. So I did something similar to that in college, and you are 100% more right when it took months to plan and do. So when I was in college, my senior year, they assigned everybody who was graduating that year a topic, and you had to do this topic semester with the children, like this project-based learning kind of thing. And I open up my paper and it says economics, and I'm sitting there like, how do you teach economics to 3 to 5-year-olds, right? So I really was like trying to rack my brain of what to do, and we decided to make a school store that would be at the end of the semester. So in order to make the school store, we created the products, and it was mostly like artwork and things like that. But then we talked about, as they made their artwork, you know, we had this whole lesson of like, how do things get valued? Like when you go to the store and something costs a lot of money versus when something, it doesn't cost as much money. Why do you think this item costs this much versus not, you know? And so as they were creating their artwork that they were going to sell at this store, we would talk about like, would you price this? Because they can only price it from like $2, $3, or $4. That was it. So it was like, if you think this is a $2 item, why do you think it's a $2? And if it's a $4, why do you think it's $4? And if it was something that maybe took a lot of materials, you know, that would maybe be something that would be a $4 item. Or if it took you a long time to create, that would maybe be a $4 item. But if it was just something that took you very little amount of time, very little amount of materials, that might be a $2 item. But it was up to the children what they valued their products at, you know? So like, even though I'm sitting there saying, this is probably a $2 item, if they could justify in their little preschool mind, like, no, I really think it's a $4 item, then it got priced at $4, you know? So at the end, they had all these products that they set up their little booths, you know, they had to advertise their booths. So it was a whole lesson in advertising, because that's part of economics. And they invited their parents in one night to come to the school store with cash. It had to be cash. And they could buy their items, and it turned into a fundraiser for the school, you know? So the children came with their parents and they presented their items like a salesperson would, you know, and they sold their items, and they had to go to the cashier with the cash and count it with their parents. And they had to make sure that it was the correct amount. So it was, I think, like kind of like a behind the scenes of like, this is how products get sold, and how the money and the pricing of things, and how certain things have more value versus other things, and why.
Yeah, because the pricing is a mystery to me, and I'm an adult.
Yes.
Like, right? Do you not go to the store and say, why is this milk so expensive? Why
So
did the price go up so much? But what happens then with the families who don't have money? That's the only question that I always ask when people do that sort of thing. There are families who don't have the money to come and spend in that sort of store, and there needs to be some system set up so that the families all have the equal opportunity to participate. And that, of course, is up to your program how you're going to do that. You know, if you can, I don't, you know, you would need to be able to, I think you would need to be able to subsidize those families who can't pay on their own. No.
Yeah, because then, you want them to participate. It's a lesson for the children too, you know, like, so it wouldn't be fair to the child whose parents necessarily don't have the money to spend, but they don't get to participate and learn that the lessons about the value of money. So yeah, I think that is an important aspect to it, to
Mhm.
figure out a way that everybody can participate and everybody can be involved.
So I'll share this with you. We used to have in a program I worked in, we used to have a book fair, very popular thing to do. We had the
Yeah.
book fair every year.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it used to really bother me when children were writing lists for books they wanted. And, there were cases where I knew the families didn't have the money to send in to purchase those
Yeah.
books. So they would take the children, write wish lists, send it home to the families. And some children
Yep.
were just not coming back with that money because they don't have it to spare. That always bothered me. And as an administrator, there were times when I for sure made sure that we had enough money where if a child wanted something, we could at least get them one thing off their list, even though the family
Yeah.
could not, but we didn't do it behind the family's back or anything, because some people
No.
have very strong feelings about accepting that sort of thing. So what I used to do was just let the families know, something like, I forget exactly how it was worded, but it was something like, your child wrote a wish list, and we see that the wish list is still here. We would like to offer that we will pay for one of the items on your child's wish list. Please let us know if that's okay with you. And there were families who wrote back and were like, thank you so much, because I can't right now. And then there were other families who wrote back and said things like, oh my gosh, I forgot, whatever they said, but at least we offered as a program to say, we want to make sure that your child gets the opportunity to get at least one thing off their wish list. So we will take care of that if you will let us. And it was up to the family, it was up to the adults. We didn't do anything without asking them, because that would just be assumptive, and we didn't want to assume anything about families, but we wanted to give them the ability to confidentially say to us, that would be very helpful to my family if you did that.
Yeah. Because families are just trying their best,
They
but
are.
and so you want to help them if they want to accept the help, and sometimes that's all they need, is like an offer for them to feel wanted and as a part of that school community,
And
and that's
frankly,
all it takes.
I don't care where a person lives or what kind of car they drive. You don't know their personal finances. So
That's absolutely 100% correct.
right, like, make no assumptions about what people have or don't have, or why they're doing things or whatever. Just, it doesn't have to be an assumption. It can just be, if your child doesn't have or doesn't bring or whatever, we will cover it. We will take care of it to ensure that all children have the opportunity to participate. And if you have any objection to that, let me know. You can say that from the outset. You don't have to wait until somebody doesn't have their book fair money. You can say from the beginning of advertising it, if your child, or if you, or something, if you would like to confidentially talk to us about the purchasing of items, please let us know. Something like that, right? Just if you need to confidentially talk to us, we are open to that conversation. Please let us know. So that we can see how we might be able to help you. And you need to say, so that we can see how we might be able to help you, so that they know that it isn't going to be a useless conversation.
Right.
Think about, folks, in your settings or in your homes, how you can help teach children the value of money, and the fact that you work hard for things. You really have to think about how you're spending what you have, or how you're using what you have. Like I said, I think I go in and out of spending too much, not spending. Children need to learn from a young age. And we didn't have lessons about this when I was young. Children need to learn from a young age. It's okay to treat yourself sometimes, as long as your needs are filled. But they also need to learn there's a difference between a need and a want. And young children don't understand the difference, right? So we have to specifically say to them, when they say, I need this toy, we have to say that is a want. That's different than a need. Need is food, clothes,
water, clothing, shelter.
Right? Shelter. Those are needs. And we have to make sure we have enough of them. So sometimes I may say, no, you can't have that toy because my money is going to buy the food. Food is a need, right? And then after all of our needs are taken care of, then maybe we get to do a little bit of want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Or maybe even also like, I think teaching them how to save money to buy like a bigger ticket item too. Because like, say they're earning like $1 to do a chore at home, and you could spend that dollar right away at the dollar store if you want to.
Yeah.
That's
Or you
cool.
could
That's what
save
you
it
want to do.
up.
Or you could save it and we'll put it aside and we'll count.
Yeah.
And then you can get your larger ticket item after we have saved all the money, and then see it build, because I think especially adults have a lot of trouble saving money, and it's not always necessarily their fault, but saving money is hard, especially when you have a lot of things. You're like, oh, it's so easy for me to just spend here. Let me just spend a little bit here. But then you're never saving for the bigger ticket items, so I think that's a good lesson for them too, to see like your money builds and it buys the bigger things.
When my children wanted something really big and I knew there's no way they're saving up this allowance to get that thing, I used to say to them things like, I will meet you halfway. I would say, you save this much and then I'll give you the same amount. Right. And then you can get it. Yeah. And I have to tell you that when my son grew up and he graduated from college, he needed a car. We still did I'll tell you what, you can buy a used car. We can meet you halfway. Here's how much we can give you. You save the rest. And it still worked when he was a college graduate. Yeah. He met us halfway.
Well, and I feel like that makes it seem like the saving of the money is not as daunting. Like if you're sitting there saying, okay, I need a new car or whatever it is, but saving that much money is going to take years sometimes. Yeah. Having somebody say, I will meet you halfway. Now all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I can do this. I can save half that money, and then it makes it so that you're like, maybe not going to spend the money halfway through and be like, oh, it's pointless. I can't save this much. Let me go on vacation instead. Like you're just, it helps. And we should be helping, especially our loved ones, out in these kind of things if you can, because I think for you saying that to your son, that's a mental thing. Because now it's like, oh wait, no, I can do this, and I have somebody backing me up, so if I can just do this way, halfway of it, then I'm good,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Sit there and be like, I'm not going to help you at all, then they're going to be like, well, forget it. There's just no point, and they're not even going to try.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. So I hope everyone is inspired, preschool peeps, to think about how you can incorporate these sorts of projects in your early childhood program, how you might include some lessons about money from the time they're young children in the early childhood years in your homes, and how you don't want negatives about money that you may hold because of your childhood or things that have happened when you were adults to be visited on your children. So just teach them these lessons, but try to do it without your own biases. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. And we will catch you next time, preschool peeps. If you find a really good project to do in your program, or you've done one, please contact us with it so that we can share it with the other preschool peeps. Go to howpreschoolteachersdoit.com and send the contact form, or contact us through Facebook.
Yeah.
All right. We'll catch you next time.
Bye, peeps.